back. Today we're trying to get the 504 to work after 2 years, and it's not been running for 2 years, but can you see that puddle? The carbs are overflowing. It's usually a good starter. It fired on 2 cylinders briefly, and then it was overflowing. So we're going to take the carbs apart, get it cleaned, and see if we can fire it up. So we got the bottom of the first carb off. Looks pretty clean inside. I remember I have them cleaned a few years ago. It's the second one. It's always one of the middle ones. I don't know why. So we're gonna take the other one off. It's probably not visible on camera, but the float valve moves freely. I take the other one off. I could see it's very full, so it's overflowing. So we just give it a little bit of a clean, and then I think it's okay. It's not the first time. I did a few times, and the other ones are not overflowing, so I think they're alright. We'll see how it runs, and if it doesn't run okay, we just take the whole carb unit out. But it's such a pain to get it out. It's a lot of work, but I've done it a few years ago and cleaned everything in the ultrasonic cleaner. And the first one looked promising, so not much dirt in it. It's just old and smelly fuel. Alright, let's get the second one off. Well, it appears the floats are just sticky. I gave them a bit of a move, and it was fine. So all the floats are closing if I push them up. Let's put it back together and give it another try. Hopefully it works this time. Everything looks very clean, so I can't see a point why taking the carbs apart. Got that bike for a long time, so I know the odds and sods of it. Alright, let's get the carbs back together and give it another spin. So while we got it apart, we pulled the jets out. They're not screwed, they just pushed in by an O-ring here. There's just an O-ring here, and it's a clever design, so you can pull them down and change it or clean it or whatever. They're held by these little brackets here. They just go into the jet like that, and it basically holds it in. So let's get that back together. I've done it on all 4 of them. Let's get it back together and see how it fires. So now it's the moment of truth. The battery is a bit low, so I'm gonna kick it. It usually starts very well, 2 times kicking, and then ignition on, and then ignition on, and it fires. Seems still one cylinder seems to be missing still. Oh, slightly warm, so give it a try. fires sometimes. So we might have a coil issue because we got this one most likely misfiring, and this is fairly cold, so we'll find out what's going on there. We'll come back when it runs. Well, unfortunately it looks like a carb out job. Got spark on all 4 cylinders, but it's only running on 3.5 or 3 sometimes. It seems something is blocked in the left hand carb, and the second from the right is running relatively cold as well. So I check this one, that's 50 degrees, and that's about 100, that's about 80, and this is 180, so only the very right hand one is firing properly, the other ones don't. So looks like a bit more work, unfortunately, but that's how it is. We're standing for too long on the side stand. I had that before, when you leave it parked on the side stand for a long time and don't drain the carbs, which I probably didn't do because I was in a rush to move here. That's the price you pay. It's an awkward job to get the carbs out. It just takes awful long because there is no space. So fingers are ruined, but we got the sucker out. Here it is. So we're gonna take that thing apart and have a look what's going on there. It was about an hour to get it out because my connecting rubbers are pretty hard, so it's hard to get them out. You need to get these rubbers out first, at least the 2, and it only goes this way because of the throttle cable attachment will hit the frame here. So you take these 2 rubbers out and then you're gonna move the whole thing there. Ideally you take all 4 of them out, but again, mine are pretty hard, so I may need some new ones, but they're hard to get. Alright, let's clean that carb and see where we are. So we got the bolts off. They are fairly clean, then they can do with a bit of a clean. These carbs are pretty simple actually. Just take those holders off. They're actually holding the main jets in, so just twist them a little bit and get them off here. And these are the main jets, they just pushed in with an O-ring, and these are the idle jets. So we take them out, put everything in the ultrasonic cleaner, and we probably check the synchronization of the whole carb and maybe the leaking as well with the vacuum cleaner and a pressure gauge. We'll see. So to get the jets out, make sure you use the right size screwdriver, otherwise you're gonna destroy them. So make sure it fits properly and then just give it a twist here. Sorry, camera is a bit in the way, but I tried to get as much as possible on the I'm just checking by eyeballing through. This is completely blocked. This is blocked as well. And this is blocked as well. The only one which has some a tiny little bit to see here. Yeah, that's the only one which lets something through. The other ones are completely blocked, so we give them a clean. They should be all the same. I'll check them just get them out of the way here. And to get the main jets out, you basically just pull them out. They just they can be a bit sticky because they're just held in by an O-ring. Don't know how good that's visible here. It's just a little brass jet, and it's only held in with that O-ring. So if the O-ring is poor, you may have too much fuel as well, because it's not sucking just through this to the jet, it's sucking on the side as well, so your engine runs rich. They usually come out quite nicely. We will check them in a minute. Oh, some of them. If you need to use pliers, put something soft in the middle, otherwise you're gonna destroy it. Let me get that last one out, and then we'll go to further checks. So we got it out. It needed a bit of wiggling. To get the floats out, you just push that little pin out here, that little pin here, and then the float comes out, and here is your float valve, which sticks here. We're going to check them individually if they're okay. They're held in by this screw here, so we can take them out as well. So let's take all the floats out. But with the floats I actually marked them, because I may have adjusted them for several heights. So let's just assume left hand cylinder is 1. So that's 1, and that's 4. That's 2, and that's 3. So let's get all these floats out. The reason why I take them out is because first I want to check the needle valves, and second, they might be sticky on the shaft here. That's brass, but sometimes they show some wear. And the other ones go to the other side, because the whole carb assembly is basically mirrored between the right two and the left two. And these pins, they're not held by something, they basically just, they're held by these little edges in the bowl. That's all what holds these pins in place. So no locking device otherwise. So we got all the floats out. The good thing with the Keihin floats is they are solid floats, they are not hollow, so they can't fill themselves up with gunk or fluid, because if they leak they fill up with fluid and then they don't float anymore. So now we're gonna take the float valves out. That's just this little bracket here, and then the float valve should come out ideally. Sometimes they stick a little bit. They got an O-ring as well, and all it does is basically just opening, and there could be some dirt behind, so that restricts the flow, so they need a good clean as well. Everything looks pretty clean, I'm surprised. I wonder what's blocked actually, but something's gonna be blocked. You got the main shed and the needle which goes into the main shed. That could be full of gunk as well. Sometimes it needs a bit of wiggling to get them out, because the O-rings are not the freshest ones anymore. They can be sticky, but essentially it's 4 times the same job. Just get it out. Here we go. Looks good so far. Okay, if there's something really badly worn, I have a good selection of other carbs which we can look into. So that's this end. We have some more. We've got the idle screws here, which are those. These are for the idle mixture, and I know they were all 1.5 turns, but I don't care, because I will set it with the emissions analyzer. If you pull them out, be careful, there's a little spring underneath, and sometimes this may jump in your face. So, and I have seen those badly abused because someone was just jamming it in. That's a bad idea actually, but if people don't know what they're doing, they shouldn't do it, but that's how it is. I just use here is a little spring, and the other one is a bit more challenging because it sits at the same place but on the other carb here, so it's hard to get to, but we're gonna have to. Same thing, it's loaded by spring, so it doesn't wind itself in and out when it's running. There's also an O-ring which needs to be checked, because sometimes this O-ring can be poor, so it's you got false air, and but considering this carb being 40 years old, there is some wear, certainly on the pistons, maybe on the shafts here. They're leaking a little bit, so you basically compensate that by synchronizing it on the engine, because the engine is worn as well, but usually not even. So yeah, it's all a bit of common sense and a bit of playing around. This one is a bit tricky because there's a little spring assembly just next to it, so it's a bit of a pain to get it out, but we have to, because we're gonna clean the whole thing properly. There you go. Here we have it. It's not really dirty, it's a little bit, but it looks pretty good so far. I'm still wondering what's wrong with it. Bear with me, I've not done that for many years, so I have a little learning curve here, just because my memory left me alone. So what we have here, these are actually the piston lifters. So if you move your throttle, these levers are moving here and pulling your pistons up. If we look inside, hopefully that's visible. The spring is tense. So the piston's coming up here, and you might be able to see the jet needles. You see it? Hopefully that's fairly visible here, so you can see the jet needles here. Well, so the whole carb is actually a pretty complex assembly. It's got lots of levers and springs and stuff like that. a dab of grease or something like that on this whole assembly here would help to make it moving a little bit lighter. As far as I can see, that the needle jets look good, or the needles look good. We just need to address what's wrong with the jets itself.